Hey, welcome, and I'm appreciating one of my customers. One of my customers that came out and found me. Like all bike shops, everybody has a good fair amount of customers which have really good relations between the bike rider, the bike mechanic, bike shop owner, or what have you. There's always stories to be told and experiences. So I wanted to feature one of my favorite customers, Scott LaPoint, and we will talk about some of the stories that he enlightened me with, which are very fascinating. You'll be very intrigued after this. Welcome to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with a guy. Hi, I'm Justin the Guy. Obviously I have a garage shop. Take scary out of used, one bike at a time. If you want to be kept up to date on latest projects and topics, please like and subscribe. Well, welcome back to I Know a Guy Bicycles, hanging out with the guy. I'm Justin the Guy, and we have a special guest, Scott LaPoint. He found me through, what, the internet?
Yeah, I think YouTube, yeah.
Or YouTube.
Yeah.
As in YouTube. So I've had several customers reach out to me through YouTube, which is great. Love you all. Also, those who are watching this, you make this channel happen. So thank you for watching. So with Scott, he reached out to me and, via emails, whatever source. He's like, I got a bike. And which a lot of people like that come and approach me. Of course, they have a bike or bike problems or bike parts or whatever the case may be. But what it comes down to in the day is they're needing some help or whatever the case may be to get some work done. And he had this one awesome titanium Lightspeed. Lightspeed, if you don't know, it's been a titanium maker for various years, and you still see them on the used market, and they are actually pretty awesome. I actually have a cyclocross version one in my back corner here, which was a lot of fun to put together. You'll see that video at some point in my channel. Any other information you'll find in the description below, as well as if you have any comments or questions after we're seeing this video, please put it down and we'll try to answer them. But so Scott, one of the stories that you came up, you had a whole story about the Lightspeed, so we'll talk about that in a little bit.
Sure.
But out of that little snippet was a messenger job in New York City. And just to set the framing on this, back in the late 80s, early 90s, I saw like either a Dateline or news story of like these crazy psychos on bikes, basically riding down the streets of Manhattan, delivering packages to one building to another. And lo and behold, you did this.
I did. I only did it for 5 months, but it was back in 1989.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right at the height of the craziness that I saw.
And I'd moved to Manhattan from the Caribbean. I had been editor of a small newspaper in St. Martin.
Okay.
And so I moved to New York City. I think every journalist aspires to work in the Big Apple.
Okay.
So I went there and I was an intern for a magazine for a few months. And then I worked at another magazine, and then I didn't have anything full time. And then I think I walked by one day Mobile Messenger. It's a place off of 9th Avenue and 54th. And I thought I could be a bike messenger. So I went in, they hired me, and I bought a bike that same day and hit the road.
So you didn't have a bike prior to that?
No.
Oh, wow. No. Okay.
A friend loaned me $500 and I bought a bike, hit the road, had the bike stolen on the first day as a messenger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you don't put a bike against a post because someone's going to lift it over the post. And that's what they did.
Oh, my goodness.
Right outside a Chinese market. So I was furious. I called Mobile Messenger and they said, hey, just come on in. We've got some bikes in the basement. So they let me build. It was already built. It was just a one-speed Schwinn. And I rode that for the next 5 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. So out of that 5-month stint, I don't think there probably was a very long or very high turnover in that particular job due to the fact of the stress and the craziness of it, or am I wrong? Was it more like you get into it and you're there for years?
I was young. I was 25 years old, 26. And I loved the idea of riding bikes. I had just gotten a bike in December of that year, and I started the messaging job in January. And I went during the worst time of the year. And you got paid 60% of every delivery. Okay. So I was out there in the rain, out there in the snow, making about $100 a day.
Oh, wow.
And I did that for 5 months. I had run-ins with pedestrians crossing the road because Manhattan has one-way streets.
Okay, yeah.
So, but oftentimes cyclists need to get across town and need to break the law. So
Yeah.
I would fly through. I learned to whistle really loud. I unfortunately hit a few people that were crossing the street with food. And I did that for 5 months. And I think finally I had one too many run-ins with taxis. I remember, I think on my last day, a taxi squeezed me against a van, and I went over the handlebars and landed on my back. And I thought, you know what? Maybe I need to go back and find a real job and
find a different career path.
So.
Yeah, because my memory is probably not the greatest because I saw those pieces back in the 90s, but I just remember seeing them. They were gearing up for battle. I mean, some of these people had like football equipment on, helmets. I mean, not just bike helmets, like full face helmets.
Yeah.
Very aggressive looking. Like, I don't know if it was just for intimidation factor for taxis, or what would you say is probably your craziest run or package delivery that you may have done?
You know what? I remember making a delivery for Jane Pauley, the wife of Gary Trudeau, up on the west side of Manhattan. I met Jane Pauley.
Oh, wow.
I made many deliveries in the World Trade Center before 1991. So this was back in 1988, 89.
Okay, yeah.
So, but to fly from Battery Park and then have to go all the way to the Bronx, time was money. So, I mean, I would just shoot down, they have what's called Avenue of the Americas or 6th Avenue, and I would just fly through there. Crazy ones, I would say down in Tudor City, some of the people down there, that tends to be a highbrow area, and they would just wonder why a young man like me would be a messenger. And I don't know. I just love to ride. I was my own boss.
Yeah.
I remember one time, Justin, I got pulled over by the police because I didn't have a bell on my bike. So you have
of all things,
you have to have some kind of a bell. So I went out and bought a bell, and then I sent the ticket in with a proof of receipt, and I didn't have to pay anything. But it was. I always tell myself, if I ever lose my job now, I could always go back and be a messenger.
True. Or a pedicab.
Yeah, I've often thought that would be.
Yeah, I thought it'd be kind of interesting. It's kind of like the pre-Uber.
Yeah.
Of Uber on bicycles. Yeah. What kind of other characters did you interact with that did the same thing?
One time I did an MS ride that went from New York City. I think it went out to Stony Brook University or something out, and I was a riding marshal, which meant that I didn't have to pay the entry fee. But if I saw somebody who needed help, I would stop and help. And I remember this one gentleman, he was a black gentleman who had been a bike messenger and had been hit by a garbage truck, and he lost a leg.
Oh my goodness!
So here he was on this highway pedaling. I think it was his left leg, and he had a flat tire, I think, and that's how I got to meet him. Oh, okay. And I never did see him again back on the road as a messenger. By that time, I probably had given up the job.
Yeah.
But he said, what was he going to do with one leg except what he knew best? And
so he kept messengering with one leg?
He kept messengering with one leg.
I mean, yeah.
So I can imagine.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, you see all these different kind of, Tour de France is popular, or you see the local rides and so forth. And cycling circumferences a lot of different aspects of people's lives.
Sure.
Either it's from commuting or job related in the big city, or just commuting or that kind of thing. It's just really kind of interesting to hear where it is to the extreme. Like there's movies made on those at least aspects of it, of messaging, and obviously it's not focused on the bike itself, but it's kind of like the Breakaway, the story,
Breakaway,
or what was the Cutters? I forget the name of the movie itself, but it's also another 70s classic. But I mean, back in New York, you're talking about big cars.
Sure. Yep.
City is packed with people. So this I mean, I'm sure there's several different institutions down there that did messaging.
Yeah, I'd see competitors, and we had these messenger bags, and sometimes people had, like I was with Mobile Messenger, and you could tell.
Okay.
But you know what? It's one huge community. When you see other messengers, I mean, you get next to them, you're holding the back of a van, and you're holding, so you can fly through traffic, and you're waving to other messengers as you're going down the road. So kind of like when you're on the road here, when you see somebody, you'll give a head nod, or you'll same thing in Manhattan.
Oh, wow.
They all look out for each other.
Yeah.
So,
because that is definitely an extreme job. I mean, in the cycling world, that would definitely be on the extreme spectrum.
When you're young and foolish like I was, yeah, I look back and I'm amazed that I survived for 5 months. But I knew people who'd worked for 2, 3, 4 years as bike messenger, because you can make good money doing it.
Sure.
I mean, $100 a day back in 1989 was pretty good money.
That's not bad, yeah.
Now, I lived in Queens, so I would take my bike on a subway and go to Manhattan. So it wasn't until later that I found out that you can ride your bike across the bridges, Midtown Bridge. So then I would ride my bike across the bridge and then go to work.
Oh, wow.
So
gotcha. So how many? For the technical aspect of it, what was your breakdowns, if you had any?
Oh, I occasionally have flat tires. I drop chains a lot. I only had, I think, a front brake on this Schwinn that I had gotten from the basement of Mobile Messenger. But I made a few friends. I remember one time, it's like parting the Red Sea. You'd see that red light or the yellow light. You go, I have to get through here. And just as your crowds are converging because the light has turned, you fly through and you're like, and I had one guy come up, he was a black guy, and he said, you're the craziest white messenger I've ever seen. And at 23, 24 years old, I probably was.
Yeah. But yeah, you take risk out of the matter.
Yeah. Many risks I took.
Many risks.
Not as many today.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, that's one of many crazy stories. So yeah, as you don't know, I'm very affiliated with MS-150 here in Colorado, and my family's been part of that organization here in Colorado as mechanical support for over 3 decades now. And I can get your sense of that community feel that you may have felt within the cities of New York. You have that same kind of community feel when you do the MS-150 ride or any of those charity rides, not just specific to MS, because they're all out there for a cause or a purpose in a sense, and it's an event, and usually that's only a 1-day thing or 2-day thing versus 5 months of doing it day in day out. But I can understand where you can see it in people's eyes and riders, and like, this is it. I'm here for it, and it's really kind of cool to see.
I remember every night I would go home and I would take a shower, and the black that would come off my body because of the soot in New York City. Yeah. I can't. It's by the grace of God that I don't have lung cancer now. Yeah. But I can just remember watching just all this black come off.
Man.
Because I would go early in the morning.
Yeah.
Around sunrise and stay until late, 12-hour days sometimes, just so I could make that money.
Wow.
Oh, you're young.
Yeah.
And it was a lot. I had so much fun, and I was my own boss. I could stop at a McDonald's and get a fish fillet. That was my favorite.
Yeah.
There's a basketball court in Manhattan that's famous by television commercials.
Okay.
So there's a McDonald's right around the corner. So I would grab my filet sandwich and I would go over to the basketball court, eat it, and then I'd hit another run. Oh, and you learn when you're a messenger. Back in the day, we had to use quarters to call.
Oh yeah.
Now they have cell phones. Well, back then we had these slugs. I've asked God to forgive me for using those slugs, but I would use the slugs that were little pieces of metal to make my phone calls. And you're only supposed to take one run at a time. But once you become good at it, the city, you would call in and you'd have 2 runs in your backpack and say, "Hey, I'm done. I need another one." And they'd give you 1 or 2 more, and so you'd have a total of 4. And some of them were fast delivery, rush delivery, and so you would get more money for those. So I learned how to play that so that I could take a day off once in a while if I had to. But I just enjoyed riding through the city. There's something about fighting traffic, fighting people, and it's such a small island, Justin. It's 3 miles wide, 11 miles long.
Oh, yeah.
And so I got to know it like the back of my hand.
Yeah.
So
crazy. Yeah, I didn't even think about the technological differences.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, we're all stuck on the phone that you're watching us on and going how to get to point A to point B and be able to identify those addresses. I'm sure this after a point it became repetitive. Certain places would call over and over, so it became more consistent, like muscle memory kind of thing. Yep. But I bet those first few weeks were just like, where am I going?
I had a little map, but eventually you learned which roads went north, which went south. And it's a very easy system down there because they have avenues and streets that
Mm.
all follow numbers for the most part
Yeah.
from south to north, and then they have the avenues from east to west.
Gotcha.
And, yeah, it was really fun.
Huh. Crazy.
Yeah, many moons ago.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. That's great.
It's like
great
a
to remember.
lifetime ago.
Oh yeah. Well, it's just the
Yeah.
80s. Ooh, that
Yes.
is a long time ago.
It was.
Put in perspective, I graduated in '89, so
89?
yeah,
Okay.
so I was
All right.
really young and crazy. But in any case, that's basically when I started my bike journey.
Okay.
With working my parents' bike shop.
89.
Okay. Yeah, in '89.
Okay.
Good year. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, any other little stories you want to add to it, or is that the good ones?
I remember one time you can cross through Central Park. Back in the day, traffic went through. Now they don't allow traffic,
Okay.
I believe. But I remember going through one time and getting hit by a car, or maybe even a taxi, and I just was lying in the road for 2 or 3 minutes just because I was so furious that it happened again. Because there's part of every cyclist who I can beat that car. I'm not going to. Someone's going to see me, and oftentimes they're not looking for you. So how are they going to see you?
Yeah.
But so I remember lying in the road a few times, and I never wore a helmet back then.
Wow.
I had no pads on. I was just shorts, or during the winter I wore jeans that would get soaked by the end of the day,
Wow.
and I'd wear a big jacket and probably gloves, but nothing over my head.
Wow.
And so I'm very fortunate that I didn't sustain an injury.
Surviving the chaos theory.
Oh my gosh,
man!
So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a great segue into the other topic I wanted to talk to him about. He is. Why don't you just explain?
Yeah. Okay.
What you do today.
Okay.
And not to make it too long, but just
okay.
the journey of the incident that drove you to what you're currently doing today.
Okay. Today I am a neuropsychologist, and people are like, "Well, what is a neuropsychologist?" Well, it's a clinical psychologist with specialized training in brain behavior relationships.
Okay.
So I will evaluate people who have what they call neurocognitive or cognitive problems.
Okay.
And I work part-time, which allows me a little more time to hang out with you, Justin, and
thanks.
ride my bike.
Ride the bike. Yeah.
Ride my bike.
It's all about how do I ride more? That's always the question. And how many bikes should I have to ride?
I've only got one bike, but the thing with neuropsychology is I went to school and got my master's degree back in 2001.
Okay.
But I was working with people that had brain injury since 1994. And I'll get back to why.
Okay.
And so people would say, well, if you keep working with all these folks with traumatic brain injury, you really should get your doctorate. So I went back to school and got my doctorate, which was about a 7-year process, which included 4 years of school, a year off to do my dissertation, and then a year of internship and a year of postdoc studies up in the Northeast. So all of that story was born out of an injury that I sustained in 1993.
Okay.
I had lived in New York City. I was this journalist for 4 or 5 years up there.
Okay.
And then I had the bug bite bit me. After being the messenger and joining a couple of cycling teams up there, I thought, you know what, I want to do this, not semi-professionally, but I think I had aspirations of being the next Greg LeMond. I was maybe a little cocky. I hadn't won many races, but I was top 10. I was on a team where I could lead people out. And then in September of 1993, I was on a training ride, and I got hit by a food delivery truck from behind.
Oh.
But I have no memory of it, Justin. I was in a coma for 4 days, and I have 30 days or 37 days of what they call post-traumatic amnesia.
Wow.
Your brain is offline, they say. I had one neuropsychologist who said, you won't remember what happened because the recorder wasn't on.
Huh.
That sounded kind of safe. You don't want to go into shock. And then another doctor said, well, you recorded it, but it's on a shelf too high for you to reach. Why would you want to know that anyway? So there's a part of me that can look at my story and say, why did I come out of this basically unscathed? Meaning I have some scars. I had a right subdural hematoma. I have some memory loss from the incident, but I don't have any lingering cognitive deficits.
Okay.
I have what's called some visual spatial stuff because I had a subdural hematoma on my right temporal lobe, and that has to do with like visual processing. I kind of get lost, and that's why I'm thankful that we have the mountains in the west.
Yeah.
So if I'm out riding, okay, where exactly am I?
Yeah.
So that's part of my injury. But to say that I'm not living on disability, I'm able to drive. I got married after the accident.
Okay.
I don't have any speech problems or any walking problems. I'm able to ride a bike again, and I have to thank God every day that not only was I spared the possible residual effects of a severe TBI after the 4 days in a coma, but that I can now work in a field, because I remember it took me about a year after my injury to go back to my job. I was a sports editor, desktop publisher in Shreveport, Louisiana for a newspaper.
Okay.
So I'm injured, I'm out of work for about 2-3 months. I go back part-time, and as I go back full-time, Justin, my heart wasn't in it. I'm doing the editing, I'm da-da-da, but I joined a support group in Louisiana, Shreveport, Louisiana, where I got hit, called the Northeast Louisiana Brain Injury Support Group.
Wow.
I got hit in September, joined that in February, and I fell in love with the field of brain injury. I can't explain it.
It's kind of like you just got struck.
I did.
It's like, this is my calling. Like, this is what I should do.
It's my calling, exactly. And I feel fortunate that I had a support group last night online. It's in Longmont, and I didn't want to drive to Longmont, so I did it remotely. Sure. And I worked with another gentleman, and we had about 6 people that were at the hospital, and then we had about 4 or 5 online. And last night's topic was about socialization, because after brain injury, many people who are severely disabled, either cognitively or physically, they can't make friends, or else the friends that they had before their injury can't accept the new you. They can't accept the new person, either because they're inappropriate with their language, or they're so self-focused. So we talked about that at the support group meeting last night, and I just love facilitating groups where I can offer hope to somebody who maybe feels very hopeless after a brain injury.
Yeah. So is this the helmet that
this
you were wearing?
This was the bomb back in 1993 when I got hit. This was a bell. It's a bell.
Oh, okay. The bell cooler.
Yeah, and you know what? It was hot. It had the reflective stuff on there.
Yeah.
And you can look at, if you look inside there, you can. The helmets are designed, and people. I always tell people this. No one plans for an accident, right?
No.
So the helmets are designed, especially these older ones, that the styrofoam inside will crack, and the plastic shell outside will hold it together. And so that's what happened here. And so when I give talks to area high schools or kids about concussion and TBI, I always bring the helmet in and talk about how
even with this, you still had an injury.
Even with that, helmets don't keep you from having a brain injury, but they mitigate the damage. Same thing in football. You cannot stop someone from having a concussion because the brain continues to move inside the skull. But if you can somehow cushion it, then it could be less impactful.
Yeah, that's, I think, where MIPS, M-I-P-S system has come out on helmets it has like a 1-degree shift where it contacts your head and the shell of the helmet to help that twist factor, one of many testings that they do. And what I was told is like you just need to, or learned, is get the helmet to be fitted correctly, which is very important because it's not correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not just the one hit, because your head most likely will do a double tap when you hit a ground like a ball, and you want that helmet to be secure enough to be in position for the second impact.
And what happens is it's funny is I talk about this now because it's a second language, but what you're describing, Justin, is called coup contra coup. It's where the brain moves forward. Well, what happens after it moves forward? It goes back. Okay. So you're going to have a frontal lobe injury in the front, and then you can also have what's called an occipital lobe, or an injury in the back. And interestingly enough, those are sharp polar edges, and so that's why a helmet is so important to protecting you from a severe injury. The MIPS system you mentioned, that helps with another type of injury, which is called an axonal injury. Axonal injury is a type of shearing where the nerve cells actually shear and then either break or stretch, and then they're useless. So that MIP system helps with an injury from side to side, as well as the front, which is the coup contre coup.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it's weird to be talking the way I'm talking because I was a journalist for 15 years.
Yeah.
So I did writing and photography. Yeah. And now, being a doctor of psychology and working in neuropsychology, I love to help educate folks on things that they can do for their brain health and their heart health and their overall physical health, which is so important.
Yeah, that's amazing stuff. So, I mean, just to take the studies and all that, taking it from your accident and your journey to get to where you are today and helping out, it's pretty amazing. I mean, I'll applaud you for doing all that. It is a tough job. I mean, you're dealing with people not in the best situations.
Sure.
And luckily enough, he has brought a few of those individuals into my shop to have their bikes worked on. Being an ambassador of I Know a Guy, which was not employed you to do that, but you did it on your own accord, which is awesome.
Sure.
Which is every bike shop's dream, having people refer. But it turns out that both individuals, we don't have to tell their names or their injuries, but both of them had some kind of brain injury, not related to cycling for these other two individuals. But one of them did mention he was also an organ donor transplant. Which
Jim.
You gave him his kidney.
Jim is a kidney recipient.
Oh, that's right.
74 years old. If he were here, he would love to share his story.
Sure.
But I don't know, what was it he shared with you?
Well, it's like, with your story, it's like you just like turn on, blah, 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 blah. And everything you say is like, it's amazing. He did the same thing. And what really resonated to me, and I resonated this into another video, and I've had some responses, and the responses were, I didn't think about that way. Very simple. When you have a brain injury, that's just more than, you were very lucky. You're very, able to do everything you want to do.
Yes, I am.
Jim, we won't say his last name, but Jim, he's able to do pretty much everything he wanted to do too. But he did resonate to me that sometimes your injury, you're not so lucky. And he basically told me, is like, you got to wear the helmet, not just for yourself. It's for everybody that you love, because they're the ones that are going to be spoon feeding you when you can't, changing your diapers and moving you to place and taking you to doctor's appointments. You are affecting your spouse, your parents, your children. And it's not just, I got an accident, I'll be better in 6 months. No. These are lifelong appointments of being injured. And then they come and see you to kind of navigate, and multiple people to navigate their new life, which is horribly unfortunate, and sometimes just one of these
can help save a life.
Could save your life, and also a lifelong of torture. And
one thing I've learned about TBI or any kind of brain injury, stroke is considered like an acquired brain injury, whereas an accident where the brain there's an insult to the head is called a TBI. That it's not a static event. It's not, it happened on this day and then it's over. People with a history of brain injury have more organ failure as they age. They have a higher likelihood of a neurologic disorder, such as Parkinson's disease. So TBI is a risk factor for neurocognitive decline down the road, be it mild cognitive impairment or Alzheimer's disease or Parkinson's disease. So, and there's an exponential component to TBI, meaning if you've had one TBI, you're 3 times as likely to have a second one, because the brain never completely returns to 100%, or what they call homeostasis. It's like 99.99 infinitesimal. And then when you've had 2 brain injuries, you're 8 times as likely to have a third. So that's why it makes it even more important. And I do a lot of history taking with clients. Did you ever have an injury to your head or your neck on the playground growing up? Because the neck is a mechanism of injury. Think about whiplash. You never hit your head on the visor or something, but there's that jerk, twerking of your neck. And what happens? The brain moves forward and backward, and that can lead to dizziness, vomiting, vision problems initially afterwards that never truly resolve. Maybe you have you're sensitive to lights, or you're sensitive to sound, all because of an injury in a car where you may not have been belted. That's another thing. Wearing a seatbelt.
Yeah.
So the things that I've seen in the 29 years that I've been working in the field, and the last 7 as a clinical psychologist, there's no 2 brain injuries alike.
Yeah.
Jim's is Jim's. Lou, the other gentleman.
Yeah.
Lou is Lou, and Lou's had several from falls and cycling accidents, and I can already see when he sees he's not quite as sharp mentally, and so he has to protect himself. He has to be safer on the bike. He can't be talking at the same time that he's riding.
Oh, okay.
So he's very self-aware, and
Very
that's good to have.
Yeah.
Is that self-awareness of these are the things I need to do to be safer.
Well, I would say both those individuals are huge successes.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Lou did the double bypass at 76 years old.
I featured his bike, and I'm like, looking at this hybrid. It's not like a bike you would see. Majority of the bikes you see on the double bypass is usually road, skinny tires. And this is a hybrid Fuji, kind of heavy, and I'm like, man, you chucked this over 2 passes in Colorado at altitude.
Incredible.
In the summer.
Yeah.
And
with that history of TBI.
And with that history, not long as age.
Right.
I mean,
many factors.
It gives me inspiration. I don't want to leave this on a doom and gloom kind of thing, but the importance of it. But the success of living and doing cycling at a long age. I mean, you're in great shape for your age. You're a little older than I am. I have a couple other guests that have been on, and they're in their 60s, and Lou in his 70s. They look really good. I mean, they look healthy. They're living their life, and that's where cycling, regardless of what age, I've seen that if you're consistent, you don't have to ride a lot or hard, or you don't have to be a racer, because that's always the phrase. You could just be an avid cyclist or a recreational cyclist and maintain this health level.
Sure.
And maybe this is something you can explain to me, since you've had a little bit of a doctorate history. It's like, I noticed, I've taken a pause. I mean, I'm a bike mechanic. We don't ride a lot of times, because you just get so focused on doing this stuff, working on things and whatever, and life, and it keeps you busy. But I've noticed that the days I do ride, and when I do, not very long, about an hour, 15, 20 miles, a good decent. I push myself sometimes, because I remember the good old days of being 20 and just like chasing myself, my youth basically on a bike. And I realized with these new fancy watches that keep track of your deep sleep and all that, I have almost double the triple deep sleep on those nights that I ride.
Okay.
So with that as deep sleep, how positive is that?
Well,
you think?
Exercise, funny enough, is the #1 protective factor against neurocognitive decline. So when I'm seeing clients and we talk about lifestyle changes that they need to make to improve their functioning, the #1 I make is exercise.
Wow.
I walk like once a week. No. You've got to be walking 3 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes. And I'm not talking at a brisk Olympic pace. I'm talking about just at a pace where you get a little more oxygen and a little more blood to your brain. Okay. And so with cycling, you are probably a harder effort, and you're releasing feel-good endorphins. You're changing the brain chemistry, and you're also, because you're exercising, you're going to be a little more fatigued at night, and you'll sleep sounder and harder. And same goes for me, Justin.
Yeah.
When I went the last 4 days without a ride, and I didn't sleep very well.
Okay.
And after today's ride, 56 miles, I always tell myself, I can't wait to go to sleep tonight, because I know it's going to be a hard one, and I'll wake up tomorrow refreshed.
Yeah, I've been noticing that, and I'm getting older.
You've got to.
It's when you're in 20s, your 30s, 40s, even I pop out of bed, I'm fine. I hit my 50s, and I'm like, this is a slow roll, and when I'm not working out consistently and that kind of thing. And I noticed, doing cycling, my doctor, the funny thing is I was having knee pains, and he was checking out my kneecap and that kind of thing, and he's seen the rotations, like, you just need to ride more, which was kind of ironic,
Wow. Okay.
because it would shift my kneecap back in a more proper angle. So sure enough, when I do more riding, it still hurts once in a while or a little sore, but I was able to go up and down the stairs. I was like, oh no, this is it. I'm going to need surgery on my knees or whatever. But nope, it's a simple solution is riding my bike. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. I'm a bike mechanic. I have these things around me all day long.
Well, you can
here we go.
Stop what you're doing and just ride around the block 2 or 3 times on those days that you can't get out for a half hour.
Yeah.
And that's going to do amazing things for you, not only physically, but also cognitively.
Oh, nice.
So I had a chiropractor because I've had some back problems since my accident. But when you're extending out or when you're riding and you can do a little shoulder shrugs, my chiropractor said, you got to keep riding. He said, that's what's saving your back.
Oh, wow.
So
even, because, it's, cycling sometimes is, I would say, not a chore, but sometimes it is a chore. You have to, like, in the wintertime especially, you got to put on your gear and make sure you're all, layered up and, have the desire to go out in cold temperatures. But it's good to know if you just do a 15-minute several lap ride to just kind of keep that jump start of your body going, or get that little trainer to Highway to Nowhere and jump on that for about 30 minutes, 20 minutes, and he'll keep your legs going as well as.
And there's research showing that those individuals who have jobs where they sit in a cubicle all day at a computer for 8 hours like this, and they may get up for an hour for lunch and then come back for another 4-hour spread. That lifestyle leads to the neurocognitive decline or Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So it's interesting because I've never been the office type. Even when I was a journalist, I was constantly moving, and even when I was a copy editor, I had to move around the newsroom a lot.
Gotcha.
And as a neuropsychologist, I hate sitting at a computer and writing reports for 3-4 hours. So I'll write a page or two, get up and go ride, come back. And they also say that if you're doing a cognitive task, to go and exercise and come back, you'll be more efficient after the exercise because of what it does to your brain.
Oh, wow.
You'll probably be a better bike mechanic after the ride.
Yeah, so instead of taking the nap, I should go for a bike ride.
And for you out there, make sure your bike is worked on after his nap. He'll do a better job.
Oh, okay. So, there you go.
So it's just incredible the things that we can do to improve our brain health that aren't that taxing on us, but that you have to be very intentional.
Yeah, that's very interesting because the efficiency is, a lot of people have, I wouldn't say high stress jobs, but you want to be consistent throughout the day because, you get that, we'd always at the bike shop at like the 3 or 4 o'clock, like, oh my goodness, I'm about ready to die here. I'm getting tired. So that's when we pump the coffee and whatever. But if we would have maybe
gone for a walk around the block,
just get on a bike, go ride for 20 minutes and come back, and
what that would do for you.
You would do for the rest of the day to be more efficient.
For your thinking, for your sleeping, for you physically, everything.
Oh, that's a great lifestyle change.
It's huge. And the hardest thing,
very little lift. Just a little lift.
Little lift. And you don't, it may not be something that you notice that much, but your body does. You may not be so conscious. Wow, I feel like I've just, had a Red Bull. No. But your body's going, I needed that because I was starting to slough off.
Yeah.
So, but getting people to follow the recommendations in my report, which include different pillars of, I call them brain health, it's so much easier just to do the status quo and not change.
Yeah.
But to make one small change, hey, tell yourself you're going to exercise 1 day a week as opposed to none for the last 2 or 3 years. Just start slow, baby steps, And before you know it, that's how I started cycling. I would ride 5 miles and think I was this bad, cyclist. Then I learned that people in Manhattan were going to Central Park and doing 6 laps. And then within months, I was doing the same thing and going, it's all a matter of just convincing yourself up here, I can do that and I'll eventually get there.
Nice. So. Well, that's a great segue to wrap this up. But Scott, thank you for so much of your insights. I just learned so much more. I had like 2 questions, and I've learned about 800 different answers. The more questions that I would ever could have answered myself.
Well, I'll say this though. I've had many mechanics in Manhattan, Shreveport, Louisiana.
Sure.
And I watch your videos and I watch how you took care of my 1991 Lightspeed. I feel very confident when I'm riding my bike because I know the work you did on it. And I appreciate knowing that when I shift a gear, it's not going to slip.
Yeah.
When I do that, and I'm just bragging on you now because you're just an awesome mechanic.
Well, I try. That's years of experience. 30 years of doing this. Yeah, but it should be every mechanic, young and old, experienced or inexperienced. The end of the day, when you work on each and individual bike, you got to remember there's somebody's butt going on that bike.
Okay.
And that butt could be your mom, your family member, or somebody, or somebody's mom, or whatever. Name your analogy. But safety has always been a huge factor, and if as a mechanic, at some point you're not perfect or something happens and you have one or two of those experiences that, oh, my bad, I caused that person to get hurt because I've forgotten to tighten that bolt or whatever the case may be, and you learn from it because you have that instant reaction of like, okay, this is my fault. I will do better from here on out. And I've had, not a lot of those incidents, but I know of them, and those things that kind of, put a drive on my professionalism. That's what I love what I'm doing now. It's not a high pace. It's all appointment only. I'm not doing 5 or 6 tune-ups a day like I used to as a production mechanic. When if you can vet yourself a mechanic that just, I'm going to look at your bike and that's all I'm looking at today. It may catch some of those little things and get a little extra love to the bike. But your bike was a lot of fun to work on too. Most of them are, but a classic Lightspeed titanium,
and it's a lot of fun to ride now too. So, yeah,
can't say more about that. Those are just cool bikes, but there are a lot of cool bikes out there.
Sure,
definitely. Well, thanks so much for hanging out with me today in the garage.
Thanks, Justin.
And I'm sure we'll have more meetings. Other stories. I'm like, oh, I want to talk about this. So please come back.
I'm ready.
Appreciate it.
Thanks
for hanging out with me in the garage. If it's nice in your neck of the woods, please go for a ride. And I'll have other information in the description. If you have experiences or whatever you want to share with the community, please throw in the comments below. Until next time, thanks for hanging out with us in the garage. Thank you.
Power boost! Woo!